Good morning. It's a beautiful morning. It really is a beautiful morning. Before I start, I have a couple of announcements. Firstly, this coming Saturday night is Tisha B'Av, and we're going to have a beautiful Eicha by candlelight. If you're in Montreal, you can come in person. We're also going to have a Zoom option, and so uh, you're welcome to join both of those. Also, we have a retreat that's coming up. The weekend of September 13th. We're going to get together in Montreal with a beautiful program planned for you, and all the information is going to be coming out in the next few days. Also, we have a beautiful new course. I won't even say a course, we're calling it a lab. It's called the Forgiveness Lab. If you are holding on to something and you want to let go, this is my personal process, the process that I used in order to forgive, and I'm going to teach it. And I'm excited. The We had a lot of signups already, and so the cohort is almost full. And those of you who signed up, you'll get notice soon with all the details. So we're hoping, because the cohort is filling up, we're hoping to start our first cohort soon, like in the next week or two, maybe even three. So we'll obviously, for those of you who are going to be part of it, we're going to send you options of dates so that way it can work for everyone. And I'm really, really excited to share these ideas, to workshop these ideas. It's really a an experiment. It's a lab, and so it's going to be very raw, very real. And I'm excited for those of you who didn't sign up. Please do sign up and be part of it. Today, today I want to talk about fear. A number of weeks ago in the Torah portion, we discussed the story of the spies. This week we open up the book of Deuteronomy, the book of Devarim. And in this book, right away, early on, in the third reading, we see a repeat. Moses is starting a conversation. He is talking to the next generation. This is the last uh, weeks of his life, and he's sharing his wisdom with the next generation. He's 120 years old now. And so he opens up with the story of the spies, and I'm going to read uh, a piece of it from from the Torah, obviously in English. It says, "We came to the land that you have sent us, and indeed it flows with milk and honey. This is its fruit. However, the people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very great. We also saw giants there. The Amalekites dwell in the Negev, and the Hittites, and the Jebusites, and the Amorites in the hills, and the Canaanites at the sea, and on the banks of the Jordan. We cannot go up against these people, for they are mightier than we." So the spies, they spread a negative report about the land that they scouted. They tell the children of Israel, the land we passed, the land we passed through to explore is a land that consumes its inhabitants. And all the people we saw there in it are men of stature. Just listen to these words. There we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, descended from the giants. In our eyes, we seem like grasshoppers. And so we were in their eyes. As a result of this, the Torah continues that the entire community, it says, raised their voices and shouted, and the people wept at night. And the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron. and all the congregation and said, if only we had died in the land of Egypt, if only we had died in the desert. Why does why does the Lord bring us to this land to fall by the sword? Our wives and children will be as spoils. Is it not better for us to return to Egypt? Complainers, complainers. Comes the Talmud, a beautiful passage in the Talmud, and teaches us that the spies who were sent on the 29th day of the Hebrew month of Sivan returned 40 days later on the 8th of Av. And this mass weeping of an entire nation occurred on the night of the 9th of Av. It will be this Saturday night, Tisha B'Av. And God said to them, the Talmud says, you wept in vain, and I will establish this day as a time of weeping for all generations. Now, I've spoken about this before. Some of you probably remember it. Today, being that it's just a few days before the 9th of Av, it's a time of mourning, the 9-day period from Rosh Chodesh Av, from the 1st of Av until the 9th of Av. It's a time of collective Jewish sadness. The Jewish community over the past almost 2 years has already been in a collective sadness. And so it's kind of just part of our lives right now. And so we ask ourselves things like, well, okay, you have this time of sadness. Well, we're just all kind of been sad, and there's a disarray, and there's a lot of noise in the world, and we don't know what to make of it all. And so I thought today, for those of you who remember that conversation, I want to add to it. For those of you who don't remember that conversation, that's fine as well, because I'm going to add enough that you don't have to have the context of the last conversation. The 9th of Av, it has become a day of tears, a day of grief, a day for terrible calamities. Throughout Jewish history, hundreds of events have happened on this day. There are many days of the Jewish calendar, many more days than this one. But this one, you want to call it serendipity, you want to call it by chance, you want to call it what we call hashgacha pratit, divine providence. This one has more calamity days than any other day. From the beginning of the Spanish Inquisition, obviously both temples in Jerusalem destroyed. World War II and World War I started on this day. And we can go on and on and on from ancient destruction to modern destruction. Jews have been crying since. The world has been crying since. If we date back, the first time we know about this day, the 9th of Av, and we think about this event that happens to the spies, I think God's response seems unfair. Just because someone cries in vain, just because someone cries in vain is a reason to penalize them and make them cry in earnest over real pain. Oh, you have fake tears. Because you have fake tears, I'm going to give you something really to cry about. I'm going to show you, because that's the kind of God that I want to believe in. That's for sure, that's my God. You cried in vain? Ha ha ha. I'm going to show you, because I'm the God that enacts vengeance upon my people. Come on. Come on. I mean, just because someone weeps over delusional misery is the reason to take revenge and make them suffer real misery? which would bring real tears? I mean, what's the connection? Give me a connection between these two things. How could vain tears alone warrant such a dramatic punishment that for all generations this would become a night of tears and grief? How do you reconcile this? And in this class, we've reconciled a lot of things. God, Torah, we've asked why bad things happen to good people. We have discussed some of the most complicated questions that people have been debating for time and millennia. So, what's the answer to this? The answer to this starts with a conversation about punishment. God didn't say that it was a punishment. God was saying that I have a prediction and a natural one. He was attempting to explain to the people the tragic ramifications of their behavior. Your crying tonight in vain is what will cause you to cry for generations. Okay. You satisfied with that? I'm not. So let's go back. Let's take a step back and try to analyze this. Why were the Jews weeping that night? Why were they crying? Because the spies came back and said, you can't conquer the land. Okay, go somewhere else. They offered us Uganda, Madagascar. Find some other land. So you can't go to the land. So what? Cry? Your parents didn't buy you a toy and now you're crying in the toy store? What is this? They were crying because they saw a hopeless and doomed future for themselves. They saw a hopeless and doomed future for their children. They had been through so much. They finally made it out of Egypt. They finally made it, as Moses was saying, they're getting to the promised land. They're almost there. They're right there. They're going to spy the land. And now they're going to die after everything been through, after everything that's happened. They're going to die a cruel death before even entering the land. There's something strange here. In all of history, it would be difficult to find a generation whose lives were more saturated with miracles than the generation which left Egypt. Egypt, the most powerful nation on earth at the time, one of the first great superpowers of the world. That superpower was forced to free them from slavery when the mighty hand of God inflicted 10 supernatural plagues. When Pharaoh's armies pursued them, the sea split and let them pass through, drowning their pursuers. We read this in the Haggadah. We know this so well for those of us that celebrate Passover. In the desert, after the story of Passover, miracles were the stuff of their daily lives. Manna fell from heaven. That was their daily bread. There was Miriam's well, this miraculous stone that traveled along with the Israelite camp, provided water. There were what they called the Anania Kavod, the clouds of glory that sheltered them from the desert, from the heat, from the cold, kept them clothed, destroyed the snakes and scorpions in their path. It flattened the terrain before them to ease their way. These people were living daily miracles. And even above all this, These people witnessed the only time in history that the revelation of God Himself at Mount Sinai, sharing with them the Torah. They were there in flesh and blood, witnessing the greatest fireworks show of all time, the greatest moment. For these people who lived and breathed miracles, for them to doubt God's ability to conquer the what they called mighty inhabitants of Canaan seems insane. It seems ludicrous. To say things like, we cannot go up against these people for they are mightier than we. And Rashi comments, they were saying they were mightier than he, meaning than God. They said these giants were mightier than God. These are people who are living miracles, and they're talking about giants of flesh and blood that are mightier than God. Let me explain it all. At least I'm going to try to. We'll call this a little experiment. I'm going to attempt to explain this. I can't promise you it's going to work. You may end up with more questions than answers when we're done, but my hope is in the process that you'll be able to do some learning and you'll be able to witness. Through their story, you can witness your own story. The power of witnessing. It's why you start crying when you're watching a movie. Why should some random motion picture elicit so much emotion? Because you're witnessing. The mind is a very powerful thing. The mind can justify, it can justify things away, it can rationalize things. The mind has the ability to create fear. Fear. So many of us today live in fear. I hear it so often. Number one question I get, Rabbi, do you think there's hope for us in North America? You think we should move? What point? You know, Rabbi, a lot of people left Germany in the 20s. They were smart, but more people didn't. How did they know? Why did some people leave and some people didn't? Is this Germany in the 20s? I get questions like this on a daily basis, as if I have some magic ball. People are afraid. There's fear mongering that's going on, and fear is not always rational. Sometimes it proves more powerful than all of your previous success stories. Like, you know that this has been the safest place for Jews in generations. But fear can take that over. Like, we can just forget about that in an instant. Fear may be baseless. And from a rational or empirical point of view. But it doesn't prevent fear from paralyzing you, from freezing you in your tracks. Roosevelt once said, "We have nothing to fear but fear itself." And I think it's so powerful. We have nothing to fear but fear itself. And this is what happened to our people. You think this fear is new? You think this is something that just started yesterday? This is a story that's been happening for thousands of years. On that fateful night of the 9th of Av, in the year 2488, over 3,000 years ago, despite all rational and compelling evidence that they can do it, despite the fact that God, the singular master of the world, had instructed them, do it. They were overtaken by titanic fear. And they concluded that their future was bleak, that their future was cruel, that they were powerless, that they could do nothing but weep. Crying is a good thing, but their weeping in vain that night was not the reason for the punishment. It was the factor that revealed what might come in the future. They wept in vain because they didn't appreciate that God was with them and that God had given them the power to confront their challenges and overcome their obstacles. When when you lose sight of your inner emotional and spiritual power, you become a victim to forces and to people beyond your control. And then you cry for real. I spoke about this before, but I think this analogy fits perfectly. Psychology Today published a couple years ago. I remember seeing it. I used to subscribe to it. And they published an experiment conducted by a Harvard psychologist named Dr. Robert Rosenthal. And he actually did this experiment on a group of students and teachers living in Jerusalem, which is kind of why it caught my attention. Anything when I see Jerusalem or Jews, I can't help it. And so this is what the experiment went like. A group of physical education teachers and students were randomly chosen and randomly divided into three groups. The first group, the teachers were told that the previous testing indicated that all of the students had an average ability in their athletics and an average potential. And they were told, go train the students. The second group of teachers were told that the students in their group, based on previous testing, exhibited an unusually high potential for athletic excellence. And they were told, go train them. The third group, the teachers were told that the group of students had exhibited, based on previous testing, an extremely low potential for athletic training, and now go train them. The teachers were given several weeks to work and to interact with the student athletes. And at the end of the training period, the results were the same for the male and the female students, and for the male and the female teachers. All of those students who had been randomly identified as being above average performed above average. All of those students who were randomly identified as below average performed below average by considerable margins. The result of this test, in my opinion, indicated that what the teachers thought their students' ability was and what the students themselves thought their ability was went a long way towards deciding just how well they performed as athletes. Now, in that article, Psychology Today took a special note of this experiment because it confirmed in the physical arena what psychologists had long claimed to be true in the educational and in the emotional arena: the concept of a self-fulfilling prophecy. We've heard it today. We toss it around like it's breakfast. Well, we don't toss around breakfast, but we toss it around. Students in classrooms, workers in shops, patients in therapy, they all do better when the person in charge expects them to do well, when they themselves expect themselves to do well. Self-esteem, your own self-image, what someone thinks of themselves and what someone thinks they are capable of is an extremely crucial factor in deciding what can be. What someone makes of themselves and the way we see ourselves, that plays the most important role in how others see us. When I was a kid, my grandmother took us to the circus. One time I went to the circus. Now it doesn't exist anymore. Well, there's versions of it, but not the circus of my childhood, for good reasons. And at the circus, there were those huge elephants. I love this story. I probably have told it 10 times here. They weighed several tons and they were held in place by a small chain that was wrapped around one of their huge legs. And I was observing this and noticing it. And that um, chain was held in ground by like this small stake. And I remember noticing, like, if those huge elephants wanted to, they could walk right through those small chains. I mean, that stake could not hold that elephant. I mean, it would be like a hot knife going through butter. But the elephants don't. But why? And I remember asking my grandmother, like I was scared, I was a kid and we weren't that far away. I'm like, the elephant can just run over to us. It's a big thing. It's huge. And my grandmother told me that when they were little baby elephants, they were chained down by those same small chains and those same stakes. But to them as babies, they couldn't move. And they tried and they tried and they tried again and they couldn't release themselves from those chains, from the stakes. And then an interesting thing happens. At some point, and the trainers know this, my grandmother said, at some point, they stop trying. They give up. They develop a belief system. And now, as adult elephants, they don't try because they're programmed. They're programmed to believe that their efforts would be useless, that their efforts would be in vain. It's huge. Adult elephants, they don't even try. They are held in prison by their beliefs. That is the power of the elephant mind. That's the power of our mind. And that's the power of witnessing. The spies, back to the spies. What did they say? We were like grasshoppers in our own eyes. And so we were in their eyes. And as a result, everybody cried. The spies caused the people to perceive themselves as hopeless, as small, as futile grasshoppers. And so, because of that, they also came to believe that everyone looks at them as if they were grasshoppers. When you think you're weak, you become weak. And you believe that everyone considers you the same. Years ago, the Rebbe was talking about Mashiach. And the Rebbe said at the Farbrengen, Mashiach is here, just open your eyes. And I had heard this, and I have heard this so many times. And I'm like, look at around the world. I'm sorry, Mashiach is not here. This is terrible what's going on. This is very difficult. There's a lot of despair going on. But yeah, I'm a survivor, the child of a survivor, the grandchild of a survivor, and the great grandchild of a survivor, and the great 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 grandchild. And my people have been surviving for as long as we can remember. Beyond that, and so yeah, that's how I'm going to look at the world. I'm going to look at the world through the lens of fight and flight, through the eyes of a survivor. I'm going to call myself a victim, and I'm going to call them the perpetrator. That's how I've been trained. I am like the elephant. When I was a little baby, I was trained to see the world as a victim. And so I can. I can walk through the world as a victim, or I can see the world as different. I can see the world beyond the stake and the chains. I can see it as a beautiful world, as a beautiful day, as a place that is filled with so much good, with so much courage, with so much forgiveness, with so many people who have such a great light within them, who are filling the world with such goodness. I can choose to focus on the headlines. The headlines are so good at capturing me because they know that I'm a survivor and they know I'm not the only survivor, that most of the readership are survivors. So they create headlines that elicit that same primal fear that we've had since we were kids. They're literally our trainers. The media are our trainers, and we are the baby elephants that are now adults. And they've done such a good job since we were so small, training us in fear. If you turn on the evening news when I was a kid, it was never, look at this beautiful thing. This man helped a lady cross the road today. No, it was top story, murder, destruction, horrible. Like that was what the news, that's the news. That's what everyone was watching when I was young. And today, with social media, with the internet, we're getting it not just at the 6 o'clock news, we're getting it constantly. CNN created constant loop. Fear, 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 fear. Yeah, we can stay in exile. We can stay in that loop. We can be the baby elephants and now the adult elephant still on the chain and not even try. During this time, the 9 days leading up to Tisha B'Av, it's a tradition to study Maimonides and to study about the redemption and about the rebuilding of the third temple and about the hope that the Jewish people have had since the beginning of time, that I believe with perfect faith in the coming of the Mashiach. And if the Mashiach shall tarry, I will wait for the Mashiach's coming every day. And when the Rebbe said, open your eyes, Mashiach is here, I understand it now. It's a mindset. It's a change in mindset. That part of leaving exile, part of being worthy of redemption, is that we must stand firm. We must stand united. We must stand filled with resolve. We have to never capitulate. As individuals, as a community, we must dismiss this sense of powerlessness. We can. The generational trauma is very, very deep, but we are the generation that is going to break that trauma. The reason why it's given to us is because we're the first generation that doesn't have to worry about where their next meal is coming from. Every generation before us, as long as we can remember, at some point in their lives, had to worry about their next meal. When you're worrying about your next meal, you're a survivor. You can't think of anything else. It's not possible to think of anything else. And we can't blame them because of that. They weren't able to. But we can blame ourselves. We are able to. We don't have to live with the survivor's guilt. We don't have to live in a world of trauma, of generational trauma. We can break that. We can rid ourselves. We can rid our families. We can rid our communities of toxicity, of abuse, of falsehood, of fear, of deception, of victim mentality. And as a result of this noticing, so how do we do it? We do it by noticing, by catching ourselves. By when we go into victim mentality, we notice, we notice the trigger. Not always are we going to figure out how to fix it, but the first process in fixing is noticing, witnessing. Say, up, that was victim mentality. That's me. I'm going back into victim mentality. I know it's not my fault. You got to be nice to yourself, okay? Baby gloves, baby gloves. Okay, this is hard work. This is the hardest work that anyone can do. Baby gloves. But you notice. And just that noticing is the first step. There's other steps to it, but this is I would say, the 0 to 1. This is the first and most important step. Realizing my response was fight and flight. That's victimhood. That's trauma. Just keep on noticing, and keep on checking yourself. Is there another response? Can I respond to this differently? I noticed it. I don't like it. It doesn't look good on me. Can I do it differently? And I think by us doing that, this very difficult work, the work that we were given, that only our generation can do because we have the strength and the power that no generation before us had. They had incredible strength, different kind of strength. We have a new kind of strength that they don't have, the strength to be able to see and witness our emotions, to be able to sit with pain. They ran away from pain. We can sit with pain. Pain is a teacher. It says there's something wrong here. When you drink the glass of milk and it's spoiled, you spit it out because that feeling of spoiled milk in your mouth tells you this is no good for you and it's going to give you food poisoning. Pain is good. And we have the ability to see that, to witness that, and to sit with it. This is the hardest work. It's the work of our generation. And I don't think there's anything more difficult. And by us doing the work, we're going to be able to heal ourselves. We're going to be able to heal our families. We're going to end up healing our communities and eventually heal the world. And you can look at someone and you know if they're doing the work and if they've done the work. It's always going to be, no one's done the work. Everyone's doing the work. It's always going to be a work in progress. It's always going to be an experiment. It's always going to be the lab of the work. We never finish this, I'm sorry to tell you, because it's such a big job for our generation that I don't think there's any way. But that's not going to stop us. Because just going from 0 to 1 and then from 1 to 2 and leveling up, already we're going to feel so much lighter, like a huge burden is lifted off of us. And then we can start healing the world. I really believe that every single one of us has the power in our own lives to confront our deepest skeletons and work them through, things that our parents and grandparents could never do. We are in a time of healing. We just entered the most beautiful month of the year. It's the saddest month of the year, but do you know what we call it? Most months don't have a name. They're just the name. But there's a name for this month, Menachem Av. It's not the Hebrew month of Av, it's the month of Menachem Av. You know what Menachem means? Healing. This is the month of healing. And we're just starting. We're just a few days into it. We have a beautiful month. And from there, we're going to go to the month of Elul. And you know about the month of Elul. We've spoken about that so many times. But this is the predecessor of the month of Elul, the month of Av, Menachem Av, the month of healing. And so, my blessing to you today, as we've just entered this month of healing, just a few days before Tisha B'Av, my blessing to you is that we remember that in every situation, we are empowered by God to create light out of darkness. and to continue our march, our resolve to bring healing and to bring redemption to the world. May this Tisha B'Av be not the saddest day on the calendar, but the happiest day. The prophets say that the Mashiach will come on the 9th of Av, and it will be turned from the saddest day to the happiest day. And so may this day, this year, with everything going on, we can look around and say, obviously, duh, this is the year for it. This is the time for it. And so may this Tisha B'Av be transformed into the greatest festival, and I can't wait to party with you. Shabbat Shalom.